4 things here. First of all, we're going to go over how to choose your topic, how to choose which topic you want to give your Mars Hill speech on. The second thing we're going to cover is the speech outline, an outline that I would strongly recommend you follow. This isn't going to be like a you have to do this or you are going to perish. It is more just this is what has worked for me, this is something that I recommend. Thirdly, we're going to talk about how to prep without a good card. So both how to prep without having a card at all, and also how to prep if your card has a horrible synopsis or doesn't really have much information. Then finally, we're going to go over some prep drills, some things that you can do to practice prep for Mars Hill. I think practicing is the best way to get better at things. I mean, we're talking about, like, the Olympics are going on. Those people have practiced for, like, 75 million years to be where they are. So the only way you get good is practice, but you also have to have directional practice. You also have to practice while knowing what you're doing, knowing what you're practicing. So we're going to go over that at the end. Let's start off, first of all, by choosing your topic. Now, I'm going to go over a couple things here. Most of them are common sense, in the way that when I say it should make sense. Most of them are pretty simple, so I'm probably going to try to not spend too much time, but I probably will because, yeah. Okay, first of all, go with a topic that has a powerful theme. Go with a topic that has subject matter that you actually believe is compelling, subject matter that you believe people will be moved by. What this means is you have to know what theme a certain topic contains. You have to know what topics are going to have what themes. So if you pull 3 current movies and you know what the themes for all of those topics are, you're going to be able to compare them. That only happens if you know what those themes are. What that means is you'll probably have to prep your cards before and have some indication of what your theme is for a certain topic. But a great way to choose your topic, if you know that information, if you know that theme, of a certain topic, is to choose whichever topic you think has a theme that's the most relevant or impactful. Choose something that has the most bearing on the situation, on current events, on things that are going on. Choose something that you think will be the most compelling or the most motivating for people to hear. One of my favorite speeches was on racial equality, because that's something that I think is grossly mishandled in our culture. I think that racism has gotten worse in a sense because of how we've dealt with it. That's a different discussion for a different time. But anyway, one of the things that I thought was most powerful, one of the things that I always looked to talk about was racial equality. So if I got a topic that had to do with it, like The Butler, for instance, or To Kill a Mockingbird in classic books, or things like that, I would always go for those because that was, in my opinion, one of the most powerful themes I could talk about. I also love to choose topics that had to do with the power of hope or the power of belief, how powerful it is to put our faith in something. So if there is a topic, or there's a theme that you think is really powerful, then definitely choose a topic that has that theme. The best speeches are going to be on the most powerful themes. The best Mars Hill speeches are not going to be the speeches that are on, like, meh topics, like, if you do not talk about something that matters, you're going to get dwarfed by people that do. I know in Mars Hill finals at our tournament, Lexi took first, I took second. I gave a speech on Watership Down, how it's important that we find our home. She gave a speech on how important it is that we have hope. So, like, I'm talking about, let's go home because home is where we belong and it makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And she's like, hope is the single motivating factor of all of humanity. So those two things, when directly compared, one has more potency, one has more power than the other, one has more bearing than the other. So definitely choose the most powerful theme because that will give you the greatest ability to move on. Now, just because I say that I think hope or belief might be the most powerful themes, or racial equality might be the most powerful things, doesn't mean that you will think that. So identify and diagnose what you think the most powerful themes that you have are, what you think the most important themes that you have might be. My favorite speech of all time is one where I can talk about mankind's struggle for identity. So Little Toy Guns, Carrie Underwood, Phantom of the Opera, both of those speeches I just love to give because it's about how to find your identity, how to find meaning, how to find, in a sense, purpose. That's one of my favorites, so if I get that, I will always choose it. Unfortunately, I don't get that all the time. But if I do, always try to choose the most powerful theme. Secondly, choose your most polished speech. Choose the speech that you are most confident, that you are most comfortable with. You're going to be practicing certain speeches as you prepare. If you practice, you're going to have to practice with something. It's not just like you're going to be able to practice and that's going to be in a total vacuum from all of the topics. You're going to be practicing giving speeches on certain topics. Like for the first half of the year, one of my favorite speeches to give practice speeches on, one of my favorite topics to give practice speeches on, was of mice and men. I loved giving practice speeches on that for some reason. It was just comfortable for me, and I could just work through it. I was so super hyped when I got it at a tournament once because I knew that that was a super polished speech. I knew that I had practiced it so many times. Some speeches are going to be more polished in research than others. Some speeches are just going to have better cards on than others. Some speeches are not really going to have much information, if any information on it whatsoever. You probably shouldn't give a speech on that. Also, if you have practiced a speech or you have never even thought about giving a speech on a certain topic, if you're comparing those two things, go with the one that is more polished. I told you guys the story yesterday about right before Concordia. I had practiced Phantom of the Opera like 6-7 times and got it in finals. Now, that was also in the plays and musical section, and it's literally the only good topic in the whole category. But other than that, it also happened to be one that was super polished. And so because of that, I had confidence going in. You're going to speak with as much confidence as you give yourself. The more confidence you can give yourself, the better you're going to do. Choose a speech that's more polished, it'll shine through. Judges will be able to tell if you are more practiced with something. Has anyone ever watched a platform and a limited prep, like right back to back? Like pretty close to each other? You can tell that there is a massive difference in polish between the two. Even the best limited prep speakers, compared with the best platform speakers, there is so much more polish when you have more confidence, when it's more well rehearsed, when it's more practiced. Obviously that is an extreme. You can't memorize your Mars Hill speech and stand up and be like, here's my platform Mars Hill speech. But what you can do is make that difference clear. You can be more polished with a certain topic. I told you guys I got Phantom of the Opera and Concordia, and I was really well polished. The same topic at Point Loma just a few months before got me 6th in Mars Hill finals. So the practice, the polish is going to have the ability to transform even a good speech into being a great speech, a good topic into being a great topic. So definitely choose one that you are more polished and more practiced with. Thirdly, your favorite topic. I've talked to people sometimes. Some people are like, oh, I always just choose my favorite one. I'm not saying that. But I also talk to people sometimes who say, I never want to choose my favorite one just because I want to choose the best one, not the one I like the most. I would disagree with that approach, and here's why. Sometimes a topic that you love can make a great speech. A topic that you really, really enjoy, maybe a movie you love, a song you love, can make a great speech. There's a couple reasons for that. The first is you'll have had a lot of exposure to it. You'll have listened to that song a bunch. You'll have watched that movie a few times. I gave a speech on I Knew You Were Trouble at semifinals in ICC, and it was like top class because I had that song memorized backwards and forwards because I love it so much. And so I just stood up and I had a passion for it. That sounds really weird to say, but I did. I knew it, I understood what was going on. It was one of my favorite topics, and I chose it for that reason. It had the ability to be smooth because of that. Judges are going to be able to see the passion you have for that topic. Judges are going to be able to see if you like a movie. They're going to be able to tell. They're also going to be able to tell if you don't like a movie, if you do not like a song, if there's something there that you're like, I really hate this. Like I gave a speech on Inside Out once, not to like criticize it, but I hate that movie. That movie,
I did too.
It's so bad.
Wow, guys.
But so I gave a speech, and the judge was like, I could tell you really didn't like that movie very much, and I didn't try to communicate that I didn't like that movie very much. I just gave it probably a bit of a negative light when I was giving the synopsis, maybe small little phrases here and there that I put in there without even noticing. Judges are going to be able to tell if you have both a passion and don't have a passion for a speech. So choose one that you like more. Choose one that you enjoy, that you want to talk about. Also, you'll be more likely to build a good bridge if you want to preserve the topic. I found this especially. It's really easy for me to just destroy and tear down topics that I hate. I did it for so many years with Justin Bieber, guys. Like, honestly, it happens. If you hate something, it is going to be very easy to tear it down instead of trying to build it. instead of trying to preserve it, instead of trying to build a bridge to connect the two things. For me personally, if I chose a topic that I liked more, I was more willing and more likely to choose a topic, to have a bridge that transitioned well between two different things, transitioned well between the topic and the Christian worldview. So if you choose your favorite topic, if you choose a topic that you like the most out of the ones you have, then that's going to be beneficial as well. Finally, fourth of all, the easiest to explain. You're going to have to spend speech time explaining your topic. You're going to have to spend speech time explaining the plot of a movie or the plot of a book. You're going to have to spend speech time talking about a play or a musical or talking about a song. What that means is you need to choose a song or a book or a movie that is easy to explain. You're not going to have too much speech time to explain a topic. You're not going to have that much time. You're only going to have maybe 45 seconds to a minute in the structure that I'm going to give you guys in a second to be able to talk about the synopsis, to be able to talk about what the topic is about. So if there is a really confusing and a really complex topic, then just don't pick it, because you're not going to have the time to explain it. You're not going to have the time to understand that. Was Harry Potter still on the list last year? Okay. Yeah. Well, Harry Potter used to be on the list for Mars Hill, and I would never choose it because it's such a complex world that's been created over so many different books that it was just too hard to explain in a Mars Hill speech. To explain the concept or the plot of one specific book would have been to go back and go back and go back again and go back to other things. It would have just been really complicated. Actually, that's one of the reasons I've never given a speech on The Dark Knight, except when I was like a sophomore, because it's too hard to explain some of the underlying things that are there from the first two movies because it's so complex. It's really hard to explain. Yeah.
Do you know when the upcoming Mars Hill topics are going to come out?
I don't. They should be soon. I know Anita Chen sent an email to the board and they said either late August or early September. So we should be getting them any second now. I just don't know exactly when. They haven't announced that.
Okay, so with movies like The Dark Knight, could you just generally explain the story plot and then pull one particular theme from it instead of explaining the whole thing? Or is that not effective?
So basically, are you saying, can you just explain like one part of the story?
Just like explain basically the general points of the story and then pull one part from the story.
You could. That's a topic that I really enjoy, so for me that's kind of sacrilege. But B, you have to be very careful that you are being specific enough when you explain your plot. If you're too general with your plot points, so you leave enough time to pull one thing out, then judges a lot of times cannot understand what the plot is. Like, for Dark Knight Rises, if you're like, well, Batman comes, and then Bane comes, and Bane's bad, and Bane beats up Batman and throws him in a hole, but actually Bane was this other guy, and this other girl is the real bad guy. And a judge is just going to be like, what? Like, I don't understand what you're saying to me. So you can do that if you're very, very careful that your general points still give a judge a good description, a whole description of the movement of the plot. That's why Christopher Nolan movies make really bad Mars Hill speeches, because if you had 25 minutes to give it, it would be top notch. But you don't, so that's sad. Okay. Choose something that's easy for you to explain in a short amount of time. Choose something where you can kind of explain the plot in like 3 sentences. Now that's a little bit simplistic, I know, but just choose something that will make sense to a judge if you don't spend too much time explaining it. For instance, Unbroken, the book, I gave a lot of speeches on it because it's like the only current book that I actually like somewhat respect. That speech, my explanation, my synopsis for that was really simple. Guy who's resilient gets shot down and has to survive on a raft. Like, you can kind of get the picture just from that. Obviously, I put a little more explanation into it than that. I made it a little more like rhetorically pretty than that too. But it kind of makes sense. The plot kind of makes sense. You kind of understand, you get the idea just from a sentence or two. Those should be the kind of topics that you should want to give a speech on, that you should look to give a speech on, the ones that you find are easy to explain. Now, just because somebody thinks it's complex doesn't mean that you don't have a good way to explain it. A lot of people think that Phantom has a really complex plot. I don't. So I just explained it in a couple sentences and it made sense to people. So choose the ones that you think are easy to explain, that are easy to explain for you, not those that a lot of people consider to be easy to explain. Make sure you understand it. You will be confusing if you are confused. Also, if it's hard for you to explain because you just do not get the plot, that means you should not give a speech on it. Because if you are confused, I guarantee you a judge will not magically make sense of your mumblings if you don't even know what you're talking about most of the time. Unless you're giving an extemp speech on something and the judge is like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but that makes sense. I'm like, okay. Basically what I'm saying is make sure that you choose a topic that you understand, that you know the plot of in a general sense, and that you don't have to spend 2.5 minutes of prep time sitting there rubbing your forehead because you just don't get it. You just don't understand what the book is about. There are some of the current books that I have written the synopses for and still have no idea what the book is about. If it is one of those, pray your heart out that you don't get 3 of them and have to give a speech on one of them. All I'm saying is make sure you understand it, make sure it's easy to explain. If it is not easy to explain, if you don't understand it, then it's better to just move on to a different topic. Now I'll talk in a little bit about what happens if all 3 of your topics don't meet any of these, which does happen a few times. But there are some topics that I found for me meet all 4 of them. Phantom of the Opera was one of those for me. Demons by Imagine Dragons was another one. Every single time I got Demons, I gave a speech on Demons. And every single time I got Star Trek, I gave a speech on Star Trek. There are some topics in a category that you will choose that to say, if I get this in this category, I am giving a speech on it and I do not care what the other 2 are. There are going to be 1 or 2 really good topics for you in each category. So understand what those are and look out for those so you don't have to think about them as much when you're trying to choose your topic.